Get ready. You are about to experience the life science effect. The most influential players in biotech, pharma, and medical device, bringing you their insights and inspirational stories. Are you ready to boost your career? Ready to set your medical innovation in motion? You have arrived at the right place. Every week, another industry leader, more insights, more inspiration, and tips you can implement right away to make your mark on the world. And welcome to the show. We have a really exciting guest this week. He's Lynn Tyler, partner with Barnes & Thornburg in Indianapolis, and the chair of the Food, Drug, and Device practice here at Barnes & Thornburg. Welcome, Lynn.
Well, thanks, Steve. Happy to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Glad to have you. Before we get started, and I really want to find out about, what you're currently doing with the Food, Drug, and Device practice, but I couldn't help noticing when I was doing my research, you have a degree from Notre Dame in philosophy, right?
True enough.
So this week we've decided it's not going to be about life science. We're just going to talk philosophy for 30 minutes. No, I'm kidding. How did you decide when you're in high school and you're trying to decide what to do? First of all, where did you go to high school? In Indiana somewhere?
Yeah, I went to South Bend, John Adams.
Okay. And so you stayed in South Bend to go to college. And did you know you wanted to study philosophy when you were in high school, or how did you come to that?
No, well, actually, I started college at Wake Forest in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and ended up transferring back to Notre Dame. But I took an intro to philosophy course at Wake Forest, and I think in part just because it was something completely different, I found it interesting. And I did at that point know that I wanted to go to law school, and had heard that philosophy was a good major for law school. So
I could see that. Could definitely see that. I took a philosophy course too, but it was my senior year of engineering school, so it was too late for me. And although my fraternity brother Scott, who you know well, another partner at Barnes & Thornburg, got an engineering degree and then went to law school. So I guess it wasn't too late for me necessarily. I just didn't realize it.
Right. It was too late wasn't too late for law school. It may have been too late for philosophy.
Yeah. So, no, I think anybody, if anybody wants to, round out their education, I think a class in philosophy or read a book about philosophy, any of that kind of history even, which has a lot of philosophy wrapped into it, I've discovered, would be a good thing to do. So you go from philosophy, you get a law degree from IU, correct?
Michigan, actually.
Michigan, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was reading Scott's profile before I came in here too. He went to IU. You went to Michigan, got your law degree, then started practicing after that?
Yeah, I've been with Barnes & Thornburg ever since graduation in 1984.
Great. And then while you're working, so you had a lot of spare time. You had kids, I assume?
By the time, I know where we're headed, and yes, by that time I did. As I say, for my midlife crisis in my 40s, I got a master's in biology from IUPUI. And when I was working full time. I did have two boys at the time, and while I was still pursuing the master's, we adopted my daughter. So yeah, it was kind of a crazy time.
So you have the spare time on your hands. You're like, what can I do? I'll go get a master's in biology. After getting your JD and after a degree in philosophy, how was that during those years? Was it tough? I would imagine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was a little crazy. The reason I decided to do it, and it's not that I am crazy, at least I'd like to think I'm not, but for most of the time I was in Indianapolis, I was working with a lawyer, one of our patent litigators named Don Kniebel. Some of your audience will probably know Don. He's kind of a human dynamo, and as long as I was working with him, I really never had to worry about having enough work.
Oh, yeah.
But eventually, I knew he would retire, and I would have to get work on my own, and I thought, it would be good to be a registered patent attorney and to have some technical background if I was going to be in the patent area.
Okay.
And so that's why I decided to do it. And of course, there was the whole life science movement in the Indianapolis area at the time.
Yeah.
We already had some large clients in the life science area, and so it just seemed kind of like a natural thing to do.
What was the time frame you said, and I forgot it.
Well, I finished in 2007. I think
Okay.
I started in 2003. I wasn't taking a full load by any means, and I have to give a shout out to my friends at IUPUI because they really kind of designed something to accommodate me, a certain number of undergraduate courses to give me adequate background, and then right into the master's.
I think that was you mentioned the life science movement. That was around the time Mitch Daniels became governor, right? Or was it the governor before him who really did the push for logistics, life science, and I think automotive sports were three of the big
four areas. Yeah,
Three
that's
of
a
the
good
four,
question
yeah.
as to what the timing of that was. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Yeah, I remember that. We moved to Indianapolis in 2005 and kind of right in the middle of the big push. And I think we're seeing some of the results of that now. I mean, we're the second leading exporter in the U.S. of medical products behind California. And there are like 60,000 workers in life sciences in central Indiana alone. In Indiana, maybe it's all of India. I'll have to go ask Reiner Fisher, who told me this statistic. But anyway, it's some large number in the tens of thousands of workers in the life sciences. And you look at little Indiana, you wouldn't necessarily think that.
Oh, I think that's been a great success, and obviously IT was one of the other areas, and we're seeing some results there too. So it's pretty exciting time to be here.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Moving on to what you're currently doing, speaking of life sciences, the way we met was my fraternity brother Scott posted an article you wrote about medical device, some of the things FDA is doing to sort of modernize and bring more efficiency and encourage innovation while maintaining safety and everything with medical devices. And you posted something about I always forget if it's accelerated or abbreviated, but another pathway to get medical devices to market, right?
Right, yeah, I think you're talking about the abbreviated.
Okay, yeah. I always, for some reason, want to say accelerate. Is it really accelerated? If it's abbreviated, it sounds like it would be accelerated. Or
it's really, I think the abbreviated refers to less paperwork.
Okay.
As opposed to necessarily faster. I think, that's the goal, but it's a pretty new initiative, so it's certainly not there yet.
Right. So is it and by the way, to the listeners, we had John Spear a couple of weeks ago on the show, who is an expert in medical devices as well. He's a consultant. So another expert. He had yet another expert on his show, which is called the Global Medical Device Podcast. I would recommend going back and listening to that if you're somebody wanting the technical details, because while I do know that you, Lynn, could provide great technical detail for people, I'm not going to ask the right questions. So this is more of a primer, and then maybe for the detailed technical stuff, they could either get a hold of you or go listen to that other show.
Sure.
But my question then is, in reading your article, if I understand it correctly, and listening to John's show, to be honest, as well, if I understand it correctly, if you have a medical device that is substantially, from a safety profile and from a performance profile, similar to another medical device that's already on the market legally, then you can do less paperwork to get your new medical device. Is that kind of a layman's way of putting it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, what you have described in general fits the 510K program, and that could be either the standard procedure or the abbreviated. The initiatives that I brought up in the recent article you're referring to really have kind of two aspects to them. You can compare your device to a lawfully marketed device, as you've said, and if they're substantially equivalent, you should get your clearance.
Mm-hmm.
Another option is to, instead of comparing it to a lawfully marketed device, compare it to performance standards, written documents that say this type of device should meet these criteria.
Okay.
And so then you don't need to do all the comparison with the other device. You just compare it to the criteria and submit that. And so that's one aspect of this new initiative. The other aspect is, in light of the changes in technology, the FDA thinks that instead of comparing your device to something that came out in 1981, when I graduated from college a long time ago, that they want people to start focus on technology that's come out within the last 10 years. So it's not clear they have the authority to do that, or to prevent people from referring to the older ones. And so that may become an issue. But anyway, that's kind of the two main aspects of this recent discussion on improving the medical device clearance process.
It's an interesting point you bring up that we were talking before we started recording. I've been in the industry for about 28 years now, and I've never really talked to an attorney about the regulations, and which is interesting.
Consider yourself lucky.
I do. I consider myself lucky I get to talk to you now. How's that? So I'm not asking you to give any sort of legal opinion or legal advice, right? But it's an interesting point you bring up, because as consultants, at least from my point of view, I think we tend to look at the regulation and go, okay, that's what the FDA said. That's what we have to do. It sounds like an attorney looks at it a little bit differently and says, I can interpret what they're saying, but I can also look at the law and determine whether they actually have the authority to make people do that. I could see a big benefit there. Is that kind of what, when you're approaching it, is that how you approach, say, something that comes into the Federal Register? Is that kind of how you think about things? Do they actually have the authority to do this?
Well, yeah, certainly that's something we think about. Typically, you're best off if you just kind of take their advice and follow it, but that's not always appropriate in every case. If you have some new technology or something, or they tend to be somewhat conservative, which can add costs, and so there may be circumstances in which you don't necessarily want to just do what they're telling you to do, and then you look for various ways to challenge it or get approved, other than strictly following their guidance documents. Or
and in my experience, in talking to people, I don't have direct experience yet, but in talking to people, I would guess that your advice would be contact an attorney if you're going to go that route. If you're going to try to question whether they have the authority to do something, get an attorney on your team, right?
Well, right. That's certainly a legal issue.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously, there's quite a number of good, experienced consultants in this area, and they have their role, and, we have ours, and peacefully coexist and work together.
Yeah,
and
right. I try to think sometimes sort of simply, and as an engineer, I'm always trying to categorize things in my brain. And what I've kind of just now invented was this idea that if you're going to follow the regulations, first thing is follow the regulations. Absolutely follow the regulations. If you think, and if you want to hire a consultant to help you with that, or you are a consultant, awesome. Experts in how to follow the regulations. If you think there may be something in the regulations that maybe doesn't apply to you, or maybe you could do something a little different, speak with an attorney. And if you're listening to this, you now know somebody you could call, or at least somebody on your team that you could call, right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary. There can be legal issues that come up in the process of getting a clearance or whatever. But, obviously a lot of large companies do this in-house without ever engaging outside consultants or attorneys. But
the larger companies, they probably have attorneys on staff, I would guess.
Well, that too, yes.
Yeah. So we have a lot of smaller companies that listen. I want to be careful not to ask you to give them advice, because legally you can't give them advice. But what would you tell somebody who's just starting? I actually had a similar question for Deborah Pollock-Milgate, who was on the show a while back. A similar question related to IP, which I know you do some IP as well, but let's say related to the regulations. And, I have a startup device company, or even a startup biotech drug company or something, and I want to make sure I'm following the regulations. Who do I talk to? What do I do? Do I need a lawyer at this stage of my company? If I'm, say, a startup and maybe trying to get funding, I'm developing something, maybe I'll go on the market in the next year or so. At what point should somebody maybe be contacting an attorney?
Seems like I'm spending this whole conversation dating myself, but you as an engineer and someone close to my age anyway, probably recall the Fram oil filter commercials, which is, you can call me now or you can call me later.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yep.
And usually it's good to get with someone earlier, before you've made expensive mistakes. I mean, one of the issues I've come across several times is that people don't even realize they're regulated by FDA.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They don't think what they have is a medical device. And so then they've done a bunch of stuff, and they've exposed themselves to actually, not that this happens all that regularly, but they've at least exposed themselves to criminal liability.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've been marketing something as a medical device without even necessarily appreciating it, or they rationalize it away or whatever. So, I think it's always good to talk to someone early now. With smaller companies, obviously expense is an issue, and there's all different sizes of law firms and consulting firms, and we can be flexible on fees for smaller companies, that we think have potential and things. So don't just assume we're too expensive, and don't just assume that the law, or that you're not one of the big areas right now is medical device apps, because they can, an app can be a medical device, which not a lot of people appreciate. And the FDA has said, okay, here's things that might be medical devices that we're not going to regulate at all because they don't pose any safety issues. Here's some that are in a gray area. Here's some that we're definitely going to regulate. Congress passed legislation a couple of years ago to carve some of the less controversial ones clearly out. That's part of the 21st Century Cures Act.
Are these those? I noticed you've been posting some things on LinkedIn, or at least last year you were posting some things that said, like, here's a list of Class 1 devices at FDA.
That's a separate matter, because they have been they were also ordered to do that as part of the 21st Century Cures Act.
Where could somebody see a list of what you're talking about now? Like, does the FDA have a list somewhere, or do you have somewhere?
There's FDA guidance documents that address it. Okay. Yeah. So if you go on their website, which has a ton of useful information, and if you know how to search for it, click on the medical device tab and then guidances, and search for those. It'll take you there.
Okay. In fact, I've spent a lot of time on that site, and so I think what I'll do for this show is I think I'll go find some of those and maybe post them I'll make it clear it's me posting them and not by your suggestion, but that I'm the one that decided, and I'll go look for some of those.
Yeah, we may have alerts on the firm's website too that summarize those, and might be another easy way to find them.
In fact, if it's there, that'd be a better place for me to direct them. Okay. So, that, as I was saying earlier as well, so you go from having a degree in philosophy to getting a law degree, going back and somehow getting a master's in biology. I was thinking, if I want to know a little something about a topic, I read a book. You go get a master's in it, right?
I don't always do that.
Oh, okay. Just the one master's.
Yeah.
So you get the master's in biology, and then is that when you become the food, drug, and device chair, or was it before that, or sometime after that?
Well, I became the chair after I'd been working in the area to some extent, going back to the mid-'90s.
Okay.
So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, became more of a focus after that, right.
All right. Before we take a short break, I just have a couple of other questions to help people see what Barnes and Thornburg does for organizations. So if you look at the food, drug, and device practice, what does that do? How does that help organizations be better?
Yeah, well, our goal, of course, is to help our clients get their products on the market as efficiently as possible. Also, we try to keep the world safe for our clients, which is more with all the regulations and laws and everything else is more and more difficult. But, in this area in particular, labeling is an issue, and advertising and promotion, what can you and can't you do?
For a startup, I would imagine that would be, pretty tough waters to navigate if you don't know what you're doing. Yeah,
and as I was alluding to earlier, the claims you make are so important to how you're regulated, and you have to be very careful with what claims you're making, and that's where the startups can really get themselves into trouble.
And how does all of this work help patients ultimately?
Well, of course, getting the better technology to market is hopefully the the goal for the patients, and then also making sure that the information they get is accurate. Yeah. So they and their healthcare professionals can make informed decisions, and that ties in with the claims also.
One last thing before we take a break. Is there anything you've been wanting to tell me, but I just haven't asked? I told you I'm not good at asking questions necessarily. I just didn't ask the right question, but you wanted to tell everybody.
How long is this show?
Yeah, right. We'll do two. We'll split it into two.
No. I think this has been a good introduction. Thanks.
Great. We'll take a break in a second, and after the break, I did have a question about, you mentioned medical devices, and some people don't know they have medical devices. So I was going to ask, how do you know if you have a medical device? But we'll do that right after the break, and then we'll wrap up. We'll be right back.
We are very proud to have the support of the Indiana Health Industry Forum here at the Life Science Effect. They have been with us since day one. IHIF provides guidance and leadership on public policy issues that contribute to innovation in the health science sector, deliver therapies to patients in need, and further the development and growth of their member companies. IHIF also works with the government and other groups to support specific initiatives and legislation. Also, if you need a connection in the health industry, give them a call. Go to ihif.org and they will hook you up. They have been a tremendous supporter of ours, so thanks again to the Indiana Health Industry Forum. Go check out ihif.org and support them like they support our life science community. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. We're still here with Lynn Tyler, partner at Barnes & Thornburg and chair of the Food, Drug, and Device Practice. Before the break, we talked about, maybe a startup who is working on a product and they don't even know it's a medical device or if it's a medical device. Is there any test or anything you could tell them on how do they know if they might have a medical device?
Yeah, the definition in the statute has a few components to it, but the main one, as I mentioned earlier, is the key, for the most part, is what claims are you making for the product. And the main part of the definition that this impacts is, are you claiming it's going to cure, treat, mitigate, or prevent disease or another medical condition in man or other animals? And if you're making any claim along those lines, then it's almost certainly a medical device. The other part is, does it affect the structure or function of the body? And then to distinguish it from a drug, it has to do one of those not by chemical action. If it does those by chemical action, it's a drug. If it does it without chemical action, then it's a device. As I said, there's other components, but those are the ones that people run afoul of because they want to make these claims, of course, to market their product, but you can't unless you've got approval or clearance.
I noticed you said, if I wrote down all the words, cure, treat, mitigate, prevent disease or condition. Is diagnose one of the words you would say as well? Or do you put that in one of those other words like treat or mitigate or something?
No, diagnosis is,
Okay.
Diagnostic devices are medical devices also, yes.
So pretty much if you're making it, if I'm making an app and it doesn't claim to do anything, then it can't be a medical device because I'm not claiming it does anything. But the minute I claim, hey, this might help you lose weight or help you treat your diabetes or any of that, so the minute I claim that, I have a medical device.
Correct.
Okay. Unless it changes something chemically in my body, then in which case I have a drug.
Right.
Now,
which an app is unlikely to do, but yeah.
Yeah, right. An app is unlikely for now. Fast forward 5 or 10 years, who knows?
But right, yeah. And then, as I said, the FDA has issued guidance on to what extent they're going to regulate those different apps, even if they may be medical devices, and in some cases not at all, but in others, heavily so.
Gotcha. So this has been a great discussion about the industry. How about you, Lynn? Do you have a book or an online resource or something that you think the listeners would be interested in?
Well, as it relates to this, as the medical device industry, there's a book, it's a little dated now, by the Food and Drug Law Institute called How to Work with the FDA. I think is very practical for people who, don't have experience themselves necessarily. Like I said, it's a little dated, and I happen to know that they're going to be coming out with another version in maybe a year or two, but depending on how soon you need it, I'd recommend that. On a more personal note, in part as a lawyer, there's a book called Love Does by a recovering lawyer named Bob Goff. It's a Christian book, and it's great. He tells all these great, amazing stories in there, which is just like, this can't be true. But I'm sure they are true, and it's just it's a really fun book, really inspiring book. Amazing.
So certainly inspiring. You said it's a Christian book, certainly inspiring for Christians, maybe even non-churchgoers might get inspiration.
I think almost anybody would find entertainment and inspiration in it.
Gotcha. Love Does by Bob Goff and Food Drug Law Institute, How to Work with the FDA. I'll go ahead and just list those in the show notes in case you missed them. I heard a rumor. Well, it's not much of a rumor. You actually told me this during the break. You're a Bruce Springsteen fan?
Yes. long time, yeah.
Yeah, and what's your favorite album?
Probably Darkness on the Edge of Town.
All right. I don't know a lot about Bruce Springsteen. My audio guy does, and he's probably screaming at me right now for not being able to talk to you about Bruce Springsteen. But have you seen him in concert?
Yes, a few times. And one kind of funny story along those lines is when I was a senior at Notre Dame, they had a lottery for tickets. I had been to one earlier for a Billy Joel concert, and I sat there for hours and, ended up in the upper bleachers. So I wasn't too optimistic when I went for the one for Springsteen. And it was also during finals week, so I took books with me to study.
Perfect.
But anyway, after like 15 or 20 minutes, I heard my number, and I was like, holy,
Yeah.
and then expletive. And I ended up in the 11th row.
Oh, wow.
And another quick story, I got a good friend who was kind of a ticket broker in high school and college, and he paid a record store in LaPorte to open up early once and just start printing out tickets for a concert at Market Square.
Oh, wow.
On the Born in the USA tour, so I was probably about 84 or so.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I ended up in the third row for that one.
What was the name of the record store in LaPorte? You remember?
I don't remember.
You remember where it was or anything?
No,
the reason I asked.
My friend did it.
So I grew up in Michigan City, outside of Michigan City on the southeast side, so toward LaPorte. My audio engineer lives in LaPorte.
Okay.
And we grew up. I was in high school, 84 to 87. So there's a good chance we would know that record store. But you were living in South Bend, probably.
I was living in South Bend, and he did that. All I did was use the tickets.
Oh, okay, got it. So he went to the store. I got it. No, that's fantastic. I remember those days of we were living in Lafayette in the early 90s, and Lollapalooza was a big thing at that time. We were in our early 20s. We're like, hey, let's go to Lollapalooza, but how are we going to get tickets? Well, we have to show up to the Ticketmaster outlet. We were going to go to the Chicago one, but there was a Ticketmaster outlet at the LS Airs in Lafayette. So we were like, well, let's go there really early and get in line. We were the first people in line, and there were only 3 people behind us. And we ended up getting front row center to this show in Chicago just because we showed up at the LS Airs in Lafayette. So those were the days where you could do that kind of thing. Yeah. Now it's all online, and you have to know a broker or be a broker or something like that to get those really good tickets. But
yeah, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I remember when they were $5 or $7, and now
and that was a lot.
Yeah.
I think Springsteen might be one of those. I've seen this. People post this on social media, and who knows how true it is, but I think he might be one of the ones that buys up all the front row tickets in that, like the first 10 rows or something, and then brings people so nobody can buy those, and then he brings people from the nosebleed section down to the front row, just so his true fans are in the front rows and not, corporate perks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Who knows how true that is, but nothing you just heard was true. All right, cool. This has been great. Where can people go to learn more about what you do or maybe connect with you?
Oh, well, The amazing story about Bob Goff, getting back to that, is at the end of his book, he prints his cell phone number.
Oh, wow.
And people say he actually answers it. I don't do that if I don't recognize the number. I'm sorry,
Right.
there's too many robocalls.
Too many robocalls these days, yep.
So, my email is the best way, which is lynn.tyler@btlaw.com. Our firm website is btlaw.com. So
All right. I'll put both of those
you
in
can certainly
the
see
show
my
notes.
propaganda there in detail.
Absolutely. Propaganda. All right. Well, you know what? We'll put that in the show notes. So if you start getting a bunch of spam, that means we have a lot of listeners. Right. That's what that means. So it's been great, Lynn. Thanks for being on the show. We're going to wrap it up now. And till next time, appreciate it, Lynn.
All right. Well, thank you. It's been fun.
You're welcome. You have just experienced the Life Science Effect. If you liked it, be sure and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And more importantly, tell your colleagues, tell your boss, tell your friends. It'll make you look smart, and maybe it'll even get you a raise. Thanks again to our presenting sponsor, BPM Associates. Set your medical innovations in motion. BPM helps life science companies design, manage, and execute their most complex projects. What effect will you cause? Thanks to today's guest and to all of our guests. Who else should I be talking to? Send me an email at steven.vincent@bpm-associates.com. That's all for now. Thanks for listening, and go make something amazing happen.